In the age of knights and kings, not all battles were fought on the battlefield. Some were fought in dungeons, behind castle walls, where cruel devices were created not only to punish, but to terrify. These were tools of fear, meant to crush resistance, extract confessions, and keep power firmly in the hands of rulers. Today, we journey back into the darkest corners of the Middle Ages to uncover the top 10 most brutal torture devices in history. These chilling inventions remind us how far humanity has come, and how far some were once willing to go to control others. 10. The Iron Chair. The iron chair was a throne no one wanted to sit on. This heavy chair was lined with hundreds of sharp metal points, covering the seat, backrest, and armrests. Victims were strapped down tightly so they couldn't move, with straps pressing them deeper into the spikes. Sometimes fires were lit underneath, heating the iron and making the punishment even worse. The goal wasn't always execution. Sometimes it was intimidation. Just showing a prisoner this chair was enough to make many confess before they even touched it. It was a weapon of fear as much as a weapon of pain. 9. The rack. Arguably the most notorious medieval device, the rack. This large wooden frame used rollers and ropes to slowly stretch the body. Prisoners' wrists and ankles were tied, and with each turn of the handles, their bodies were pulled further apart. What made the rack infamous wasn't just the physical pain. It was the dread of hearing the creak of wood and rope tightening. It was used mainly for interrogations, extracting confessions, or forcing names out of suspects. Even those who never touched it feared it, making the rack one of the most effective tools of psychological warfare in the medieval dungeon. 8. The dunking stool. The dunking stool was often used for public punishments, especially against those accused of witchcraft or gossiping. A victim would be tied to a wooden chair, which was then attached to a long wooden beam or lever. They were lowered into a body of water again and again. The punishment wasn't always about injury, it was about humiliation and terror. Crowds gathered to jeer, laugh, or accuse, turning the punishment into a public spectacle. The fear of drowning, mixed with the shame of being displayed to neighbors, made the dunking stool a form of social control as much as personal punishment. 7. The scavenger's daughter. In contrast to the rack, the scavenger's daughter compressed instead of stretched. Invented in England during the reign of Henry VIII, it forced the prisoner into a crouched, folded position with iron bands locking their limbs tightly together. The pressure caused extreme discomfort, restricting movement, and forcing blood to rush unnaturally. This device symbolized how the state could literally bend its enemies to its will. It wasn't always fatal, but it was a powerful reminder that resistance came with unbearable consequences. 6. The stocks and pillory. Unlike the hidden devices of dungeons, the stocks and pillory were designed for the public eye. Victims were locked into wooden frames in marketplaces or town squares, with their heads and hands trapped. The real punishment wasn't the restraint, it was the humiliation. Townsfolk would throw rotten food, mud, or insults at the prisoner, turning punishment into entertainment. Days in the stocks left a lasting impact, not just on the body, but on the victim's reputation. In a society where honor meant everything, the stocks were one of the most effective tools of shame. 5. The breast ripper. Some torture devices were made to specifically target women, and one of the most terrifying was the breast ripper. It consisted of iron claws, sometimes heated, used to punish women accused of adultery, heresy, or moral crimes. Though rarely used compared to other devices, the breast ripper has become a symbol of how justice in the Middle Ages was often shaped by gender. The fact that such a device even existed shows how punishment could be used not just to control behavior, but also to enforce strict social roles. 4. The thumbscrew, 535 to 615. Simple, small, and portable. The thumbscrew proved that cruelty didn't require massive machines. This device used iron screws to slowly crush fingers, thumbs, or even toes. It was especially popular during interrogations, since it was easy to carry and quick to use. Its strength lay in its simplicity. With just a few turns, it caused enough pain to extract information. The thumbscrew is a reminder that some of the most feared punishments in history didn't come from towering devices, but from small instruments designed with precision. 3. The Catherine wheel. The Catherine wheel, also called the breaking wheel, was both a torture device and an execution method. Victims were bound to a massive wooden wheel, their bodies exposed to blows or left for display. Sometimes the wheel itself was turned into a public spectacle, drawing large crowds. It was brutal, but its true purpose was symbolic. By displaying the punishment so openly, rulers reminded the public of the cost of disobedience. The Catherine wheel became one of the most feared and legendary punishments of medieval Europe. 2. The heretic's fork. A strange but effective device, the heretic's fork was a metal rod with sharp points at both ends, one end pressed under the chin, the other against the chest. Victims were strapped with it in place, unable to rest their heads or even whisper without discomfort. It didn't kill, but it was a tool of silence, used to control speech, prevent prayer, or keep prisoners from sleeping. The heretic's fork shows that torture wasn't always about brute force. Sometimes it was about relentless discomfort that wore a person down over time. Number 1. The Iron Maiden. At number 1, we reach perhaps the most infamous of all, the Iron Maiden, a coffin-like structure lined with spikes on the inside. Victims were supposedly enclosed within, surrounded by cold steel. But here's the twist. Historians today debate whether the Iron Maiden was truly used in the Middle Ages, or if it was a later invention meant to exaggerate medieval cruelty. Whether real or myth, it has become the ultimate symbol of medieval torture, appearing in countless books, films, and legends. Its lasting legacy lies not in what it did, but in what it represents, the idea of the Middle Ages as a dark and unforgiving time. From humiliation in the town square to the dreaded dungeons of castles, these devices reveal the darker side of human history. They weren't just tools of pain. They were instruments of fear, control, and power. Some, like the rack and the stocks, were real and widely used. Others, like the Iron Maiden, may have been more myth than reality. But together, they form a haunting picture of how justice and authority were enforced in the Middle Ages. Which of these devices do you think was the most terrifying? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into history's darkest secrets.